First item of old business, we have the minutes for October 21st, 2020. I would entertain a motion.
To approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Joint Executive Group on Homelessness, MOA, and Charter. Do we have Lindsay on? Kathleen, are you taking this?
I can go ahead unless Kathleen wants to.
Yeah, we got to mute somebody.
Oh. Can you hear me all right? Awesome.
Yes, Lindsay.
Let me see if I can get the video going as well. So this is just the exact same homeless, the memorandum and the charter creating what we're calling the Joint Executive Group on Homelessness. And this is identical to what we talked about in council time last week. The only update is that the city did formally approve this on Monday. And so what we're looking for is the council approval of this today. And then we'll go ahead and get the signatures. We'll form the group, and the initial meeting to get all of the mechanics ready for this group will be set in November.
Great. Do we have any questions from council or any comments on the MOA? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion on the memorandum? I would just say I'm very thankful to see this come to fruition. This started almost 3.5 years ago with the first joint meeting between the city and the county to talk about homelessness. From that meeting, we formed a work group that I had the opportunity to serve on, along with a number of other electeds from both city, county, and staff. And I'd say laid kind of the framework for what this agreement became. That idea came back, and we realized after hearing from a lot of the service providers and people with lived experience that our first swing at it wasn't quite right. And so we got back together and came up with this. And I think this is a very positive step, both in terms of addressing the relationship between the city and the county and finding ways to work better together, but also a very positive step towards addressing the issue of homelessness within our community. So I'm excited to see this come together and see this moving forward in the years ahead. There's no other.
So I'll just add that I completely agree with everything Councillor Blum just said. And, this group in and of itself isn't going to solve all the problems, but having a formal way for the city and county to work together on a problem that deeply affects both of our jurisdictions is a fantastic first step to be able to start to work on these together instead of in silos.
Okay, any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have the agenda pulled back up there. New business, CARES Act funding for the Public Utility District.
Council, this is Mark Gasaway. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Mark.
Great. I apologize. I don't think I can get the video to work. However, as we spoke with some of you on Monday, the Clark County PUD approached us about being able to provide a program for individual households to use CARES Act money to help offset those that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. As the staff report explains, they will be administering this program. Also, I have Melissa Ankeny from Clark PUD. If you have questions for her, I don't know if you have any questions more about the program itself, but we're here to answer those.
Questions from the council?
So if I might, Councillor Blum. So Mark or whomever from Clark PUD. So we're looking at initially to start with qualifying customers for amounts up to $500 and up to $2 million total for now. That's about 4,000 potentially if everybody gets $500 ratepayers. Is that a number that, it seems like a low number of families that we would be serving, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't have any context to that. So I guess my question would be, if that 500 number is the right number, and I know it says we can come back later if we end up using the full 2 million, if the council wants to approve others. But anyway, I'll just maybe have you answer to that question.
Yeah. And maybe I'll let Melissa speak to that, because I don't have personal knowledge of what that customer base would look like. So Melissa, can you speak to what you feel that would represent?
Yes. So currently we have $5.6 million in customer 60 days past due, and 4.2 million of that is 30 days past, which is approximately 22,676. I think because we're putting a cap at the $500 will allow more customers to be eligible. We are currently working through the data now. This has been a quick couple weeks working with Mark to get this put together. We will be doing it online, so it will be open on a first come, first served basis. And it'll be our first step in reaching out to the customers and being able to provide some assistance. So we appreciate Clark County working with us and partnering with us.
So quick follow-up question then, if I might. So of that past due, how many ratepayers are past due? Do we have that number?
We have approximately 22,676, and we have 198. Yeah, and it's approximate. Every day that number changes and it's been growing.
Okay, so then I guess that sort of my other, and I'm sorry to be nitpicky about this, but so if we gave everybody $500, that would we would get to 4,000 ratepayers. So I'm wondering then, and I don't know what amounts they're past due. If they're typically past due, if it's 1 or 2 months, is that $500 or $200? I'm trying to get to more, being able to serve more people, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. We will be looking at that and working through. It's only up to that amount. So, and it is only if it's past due since the April billings. So that'll minimize some of that as well. So that's what we found that would be the max. That was the potential that we could give out to people at the high end.
Okay, all right.
Councilor Olson, this is
the demand either of people who will go online and actually fill out application and have been COVID impacted.
Councilor Olson, this is Vanessa Gaston, Director of Community Services. I also just want to remind people, we also have the low income energy assistance program that the Clark Public Utilities is operating, and there is funding for that has started to kick off for the winter time. So if people have shut off notices for that piece there, that is also available, and that's more geared towards low income individuals.
And actually that's a really good delineation, because this would be for those folks who wouldn't qualify as low income, but maybe have lost their jobs or been impacted by COVID that are past due or could use some relief. So
and then we have separate pots for businesses, and I'm assuming we have mechanisms in place so people don't double or triple dip into that. But I'm confused by what was just said on, I heard April, past due since April, so that would be directly COVID related. But what was the number of ratepayers affected? I heard 22,000, but that didn't sound right to me. And then I also heard 5.6 million past due. So it sounds like the 2 million will barely scratch or meet half the demand. So I'm not clear on these numbers.
So I believe when we worked with Mark, we had talked about 2 million initially, because usually when we do these programs too, not everybody will apply or has been impacted by COVID. So then we would increase it, as he has listed here, in increments of 1 million up to 4 million, which as of now, 4.2 million is the bucket we have in 30 days past due in our residential sector. And this is only residential customers as well.
So Counselor, she's giving you numbers for the whole population, not those that we've identified that have been impacted by COVID at this point. So it's going to be a much smaller population or smaller than the total population. That work still has to be done. The qualification work still has to be done.
And also, Council, this is Larry Stafford with the Auditor's Office. The restrictions around the Coronavirus Relief Fund limit it to expenses incurred between March 1 and November 30th. And so, again, that's going to further reduce that eligible population. Ratepayers who were behind before that period would not be eligible. And so I think a lot of that data and analysis and trying to comply with the requirements of the funding limits that population, as well as how long we can offer this and how narrow the eligibility requirements have to be in order to get the money expended and moved to those ratepayers by November 30th.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like a moving target and that we do have a plan in place to increase the amount once the numbers are better known.
That's correct. We're trying to be flexible, but we want to get as many people as we can served with this funding. So,
what are the processes in place to make sure that we are able to show that the people who received this grant were impacted by COVID? I guess my concern is if we're audited and it turns out that some of this money wasn't spent appropriately, what protections does the county have once that money's out the door, since we're not administering it? Larry or the PD speak to that.
yeah, and let me ask Larry to speak to that, because we've been dealing this with all of the grants that we've been doing. So it's the same process for all of the grants that we've been doing. So Larry, if you could just review that with council, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, certainly. So a number of these partners that we're working with are considered subrecipients. It's the formal term under the Code of Federal Regulations. And for those programs, we've been working and discussing with the Washington State Department of Commerce, who is our pass-through entity that would have decision-making authority over a lot of the review of the processes that the county is operating along with this funding. So and talking through with those, we are responsible for performing what's known as subrecipient monitoring. And of course, the Department of Community Services, their program staff and the auditor's office will be involved in that. And essentially, we're looking at auditing a percentage of the recipient packets and to evaluate the documentation that's been supplied to support the application for these grant applications. And in this case, again, with the Clark PUD, working with Melissa, the application eligibility requirements will be fairly narrow. And that's to make sure, because we have a very small window here to begin this program, stand it up, and close it out before November 30th. So to make sure that those eligibility requirements are clear and that people are able to provide documentation during the application process that provides sufficient support. And then the county would go in and review a number of those application packets on the back end. But we are working with our partners at Commerce to make sure that our processes meet the federal requirements. And of course, we're following audit standards here in the auditor's office to make sure that we're meeting those requirements as well. And of course, DCS specifically deals with the Community Development Block Grant and other federal programs, and they have quite a bit of experience at this. So we're fairly confident in the processes we have in place at this point.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from council? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Third.
Been moved and seconded and thirded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have one thing, Counselor, sorry. I want to thank you for Clark PUD and Mark Gasaway for bringing this to us. And the ability for us to get this done and turned around quickly, I think is something we should be proud of. And so I appreciate the flexibility and willingness to continue to get these revenues out into our community where they're needed.
And Clark appreciates it as well. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Council. I am going to log out now.
Thanks, Mark. And next for the agenda, we have councilor reports. Any reports? Okay, work session requests. I don't see any on the agenda, but Kathleen, do we have any work session requests?
Not today.
Okay. Lindsay, any report on policy issues?
Nope, we just have our legislative meeting today.
Okay. And we had executive sessions earlier this morning, so that concludes the council time agenda. We are adjourned.